Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to March's installment of the Philippine Indigenous Language Lecture Series, or PILS, for the year 2025. This year-long series of public lectures was organized in solidarity with the International Decade of Indigenous Languages from 2022 to 2032, as declared by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO. I am Brian Salvador Coratobaran, and I'll be your moderator today. This event is being recorded and will be uploaded at the YouTube channel of the UP Department of Linguistics. For the members of the audience, we have students from our Ling 110 class who will be observing morphological glossing and morphosyntactic analysis in action for the first time, and students from our Ling 121 class who have already been introduced to the different verbal morphologies of different Philippine languages, and who I hope are interested to see the parallels and differences of the many different languages of the Philippines and the language that our speaker will be talking about today. If you have any questions, we will try to address them after the talk. We request that you keep your queries concise, to the point, and respectful. Please be quick and please be kind. March's lecture is on Bukalot Egongot, with an ISO code ILK, a language spoken in the northern part of Luzon. Our speaker is currently an instructor and master's student at the Department of Linguistics, University of the Philippines, Diliman. He also graduated from the department's BA program. His research interests include language documentation, comparative studies of Filipino and Japanese, social linguistics, and experimental linguistics. He is also a member of the CATIG Collective. It is a collective, an initiative that seeks to advance the linguistic rights of the various Philippine ethno-linguistic groups. You can see their work on the department's website. Of relevance to his talk, he also serves as a member of the community-based documentation project for the Bukalot Egongot language, funded through the University of the Philippines Extension Grant. To give his talk on a prominent feature of the language, the voice aspect paradigm in Bukalot Egongot, let us welcome Instructor John Michael Estepano.
Thank you, Sir Brian. Good afternoon. Ang dami niyo. Okay, so ang ating pag-uusapan today ay isang wika na sinasalita sa Cordilleras. So magbabasa ako ng script just so we can control the time, and I am seated kasi we are being recorded. So if you want to watch the recording again at kung kailangan ba sa inyong requirements, you can watch it on our YouTube channel, right? So please, let me start. Okay. For this talk, I will be discussing the voice aspect paradigm in Bukalot Egongot, an endangered Philippine language. I understand that the makeup of the audience is pretty varied, with students who are taking Ling 110, 115, 121, and 140. To make sure that we have the same working definitions, I will also give a crash course on some concepts related to our topic so that we may understand each other. Medyo cold yung magiging topic natin, technical, but please bear with me. If you have any questions or need further clarification, please feel free to ask me. I'll try my best to address your concern. Right. Today's lecture will have 4 parts. First, I will introduce the language and its community, after which we will talk about the collaboration between the Ethno-Linguistic Group and the UP Department of Linguistics. Next, as I've mentioned, we will also briefly explore the concepts of voice, semantic roles, grammatical relations, aspect, and paradigm. Kaya natin yan. Finally, we discuss the morphosyntax of voice and aspect in Bukalot Egongot. Bukalot Egongot ISO 6393 code ILK is a language spoken in the provinces of Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino, Aurora, and Nueva Ecija. In 2020, it was reported to have a population of less than 2,000 families, and ethnologue lists its vitality status as 6B or threatened. This means that it is slowly losing usage in the domains of education, commerce, religion, and the home. Transmission to the younger generation is also decreasing, with members of the community shifting to other lingua francas such as Ilocano and Tagalog. To address this language endangerment, individuals push for the documentation of their language, highlighting the need for it to be headed and decided upon by the community. In the mid-1960s, Dr. Ernesto Constantino, the primary designer of the 700-plus sentence list, conducted fieldwork in Nueva Vizcaya to collect vocabulary and sentences in several languages, which included Bukalot Egongot. This data were saved in cassette tapes and then archived. We will return to this later. Almost half a century later, in 2009, several undergraduate students went to Nueva Vizcaya as part of the requirements for their subject, Linguistics 125, or Introduction to Field Methods. This reignited the connection between the community and the department, and among the outputs were a preliminary grammar sketch of the language. 14 years later, members of the Bukalot Egomot community contacted the department for a possible language documentation project. Sir Fred Barcelo, the man here in the middle, was a consultant during the 2009 fieldwork. In 2023, he then initiated a collaboration which also covers the data to be presented today. 5 Linguistics 225 students, which include me, went to Nueva Vizcaya in July 2023. This is part of the requirements of the subject and of the extension project, developing a community-based documentation project for Bukalot Phase 1, both of which were headed by Department Chairperson Cristina Gallego. The project, including its second phase, is funded by the UPD Extension Grant through the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Development. Our current lecture is an output of the second phase of the project and is also a form of preparation for my thesis. While there had been follow-up fieldworks in October 2023, March 2024, and August 2024, the large chunk of the data to be presented here were arrived at during the initial July 2023 fieldwork. With my classmates, Patricia Asuncion, Jessie Bagunu, Rolien Balisi, and Queenie Dortas, and with the help of Sir Fred, Sir June, Sir Jimmy, and Sir Ariel, translations for the sentences in the 700 list were gathered. From the data, I wrote a term paper focusing on the voice affixes. Additional validation has then been done in October and December 2024 and last month. So, before we go to the discussion of the analysis, first then, what is voice? Simply put, it shows the change in the construction of the sentence, which then alters its interpretation. We learned this during elementary in the context of English. We see that the active sentence, Noel took the ball, has the passive counterpart, the ball was taken by Noel. So let's apply this to Tagalog. I present here the translation of the 2 sentences that I have mentioned, and if we look at them, see that they do not neatly align with what happens in English passivization. In English, the forms of the words do not necessarily change, but their order in the sentence has been altered. Before we go deeper into voice's application into Philippine languages, let us first talk about some additional concepts. Spain in 1997 said that voice is the relationship between semantic roles and grammatical relations within clauses. So medyo sunod-sunod yung pagbato natin ng concepts dito. So nakuha na natin yung voice, and now, ano naman? In grammatical relations. As the name suggests, semantic roles reveal something about the noun's part in the situation described by the sentence. If you have taken Ling 110, you know that some of the examples of these roles are agent, location, instrument, and beneficiary. These are based on the meaning of the verb, which means that the role of a noun depends on what they do based on the interpretation of the verb. Next, grammatical relations are meanwhile based on structure. In a phrase, you typically have a subject and one or more objects. The subject agrees with the verb, so ito yung alam nyo sa elementary and high school as the subject-verb agreement, and has the closest relationship to it. Objects, meanwhile, are additional nouns that the verb requires. Again, semantic roles are based on meaning, while grammatical relations are based on structure. So yun yung kailangan nating matandaan. Pag sinabing semantic roles, automatically, yun ay nakabase sa meaning. Pag sinabi natin grammatical roles, they are based on structure. So, kailangan natin makita yung pagkakaiba ng dalawa kasi yung combination nila, yung alignment, yung magde-decide kung ano ba yung voice. Right, so let's take a look at an example in a Philippine language. So ito yung Tagalog. Alam niyo na to, if you're a linguistic student, hindi kayo matatapos dito sa pangungusap na ito. Sige, so sa pangungusap na kumain ang bata ng mangga, ano yung subject? One more. Ano yung subject? Ang bata. So kaya siya, alam natin na siya yung subject kasi siya yung kinakapitan ng alin? Sure. Yes. So kaya siya subject, at least for now, kasi siya yung kinakapitan ng ang. So ano yung ng mangga? Yung object. So object siya at ano yung kumakabit sa kanya? Ng. Alright. So tama naman so far. So if we look at the meaning, we know that bata is also your agent. Kasi siya yung kumain. Siya yung gumawa ng action. Okay? So siya yung subject and then siya rin yung patient. Sorry, siya yung subject and siya rin yung agent. And your mangga would be the patient. So bakit ito mahalaga? Sa Philippine, in 1997, yung active voice ay kung saan yung agent ay yung subject at yung patient ay yung object. So far, so good? Alright. Passive voice naman ay kapag yung patient ay yung subject at yung agent ay yung oblique o yung tinatawag natin na additional noun. Ibig sabihin, pagpapalitin lang natin yung pwesto ng mga salita. Kaya, try nating linisin ulit yung ating pangungusap and then tingnan natin kung ano yung passive counterpart. So, sinabi na natin kanina na yung subject ay marked ng ang at yung object ay marked ng nang. Kung yun lang talaga yung susundin natin, kung pagpapalitin lang naman natin yung ating markers, we see that the interpretation is awkward and is not semantically well-formed. Its structure is fine, alright, but it makes no sense. So, how would you make this sentence here better? Tanong nyo. Kinain ng alin? Kinain ng bata ang mangga. So, tama, kasi pinapalitan natin yung form ng verb. With this, we would now be correct following Payne's definition. The subject is mangga, which is the patient. The agent, here, bata, is now the object. But in Philippine languages, there is a challenge. Paano? Kung yung pangungusap natin, for example, ay ganyan. So, ano yung subject? Kutsara. Kasi siya yung minamark ng ating ang. So, our intuition as speakers tell us that. But our current working definition for voice does not account for the combination of the semantic instrument and the structural subject. This phenomenon has been observed since the time of the Spanish missionaries in the country and was also described in 1917. In 2013, Professor Emeritus Jonathan Maliksi provided an extensive discussion in his book. In elementary and high school Filipino, you might know this as focus ng pandiwa. So tama naman na naturo naman siya sa high school. Siguro naman. Okay. So para lang alam natin na pare-pares na yung pinanggagalingan. Okay, so next aspect is another category that our verbs reflect. We follow Schachter and Otanis' definition. It is the characterization of an event as completed or not completed, and if not completed, as begun or not begun. It is perfective when it is completed, imperfective if not completed but has already begun, and contemplative if not begun at all. So in Tagalog, kumain would be perfective, kumakain would be imperfective, and ano yung contemplative? Kakain. So, tama naman. Kaya pa? Okay, so tagdagan natin yung concepts na kailangan natin maintindihan for today. So finally, paradigms in linguistics are basically representations of the possible forms a word may take based on the construction of the sentence. In this lecture, we will create a paradigm based on both the voice and aspect affixations of words in Bugalot and Gomot. So para mas nag-grasp natin yung pag-uusapan natin dito, alamin muna natin ano ba yung pinag-uusapan natin. So kanina, sinabi ko, yung voice ay yung pagpantay or yung pag-align ng ating grammatical relations and semantic roles. So ano ulit yung ating mga binanggit na semantic roles kanina? Agent, patient, instrument, beneficiary, and location. Lagyan natin ng V para masabi na voice yung ating nire-represent. And then we have three aspects. Ano yung nabanggit natin tatlong aspect kanina? Perfective, imperfective, and then contemplative. Alright. So try natin isipin. Ano ba yung mga kinakabit natin sa verbs when we want to represent this in Tagalog? Try natin yung kain. Pare. So if you are the actor at tapos na, ano yung form ng verb? Kumain. So yun nandun. Kapag nangyayari pa lang, kumakain. So ano yun? Tapos may isa kang reduplication. So please forgive me, medyo dinidilisan natin yung pagsulat. Kapag mangyayari pa lang, ano yung form mo? Kakain. So try natin yung patient voice. Kapag yung pinag-uusapan nyo ay yung bagay na kinain, ano yung affix na kinakabit nyo sa root? In. Pag imperfective, kapag contemplative, so mayroon ka rin reduplication and then kinakapitan mo sa dulo ng in. So far, nasusundan natin yung pinag-uusapan. Alright. Okay, so instrument voice, paano mo sasabihin na instrument, yung iyong subject, tapos na yung action? So meron kang i, meron kang in, meron kang pan. Pag nangyayari pa lang, wait lang, ano? Pag nangyayari pa lang, ano yung form na ng verb? Ipinapakain? Ipinangkakain or Ipinapangkain. Oh, sige, lagay na lang natin yan siya. Mahaba. So, paano kapag contemplative? Oh, sige. Imagine na. So, kapag benefactive, paano yun? Pwede pa benefactive? Sige, locative. Paano yun? An? So, paano? Ano pa yung dadagdag? Kinain? Kinainan. Kapag nangyayari? Kinakainan. Pag mangyayari, kakainan. So, nasusundan? Alright, so ready na tayo. Alright, next slide tayo. Okay, so yan yung tinatawag natin na voice aspect paradigm. This is the example in Tagalog. So, yung puso ng ating presentation is the voice aspect paradigm in another Philippine language, Bugalot Ego. Alright? Okay, medyo maraming nangyayari, pero dagdagan natin yung mga kailangan natin maintindihan. Okay, so another thing, before we go to the sample sentences, let's look at the orthography or spelling used in the language. The G, with the diacritic on top, represents the voiced bilar fricative, while the E, with two dots on top, represent the schwa, yung mid-central vowel. A singular dot on top of the graphemes or letters, which you can see here, mean that the pronunciation changes based on the variety of the language. In Nueva Vizcaya, the first sound is realized as V when it is between vowels, while the second sound is realized as Taglay, ya. So I now show you the voice aspect paradigm in Bugalot Egomot. This show the affixes that reflect voice depending on the aspect, and we will discuss them with the help of sample sentences in the next few slides. Pero para mas maintindihan natin kung ano ba yung pinapakita ko sa mga slides dito, tignan muna natin. Paano ba dapat basahin ang glossy? Sige, show of hands. Sino na yung marunong ng glossy? Ay, yung mga teacher nyo. So, yan. Okay, so quick recap lang naman tayo para alam natin yung mga kailangan natin sundan. Okay, so sa glossing, ito yung sumusunod ito sa Leipzig glossing rules. So we have 4 tiers here. Sa unang linya, diyan nakasulat yung mismong pangungusap sa wikang pinag-aaralan natin. Okay? So sa linya na yan, for example, this is a Bugalot Egomot sentence na nanam, mamantatanim na maola. Sinusulat siya in the orthography or sa spelling system nila, pero kung gusto nyo mas maging accurate yung representation nyo ng data of the language, you may choose to use the IPA symbols. Pero here in this presentation and doon sa project, pinili na gamitin yung orthography to acknowledge yung action ng community na mag-design at mag-develop ng kanilang sariling system. Okay? So sa second line, may nakikita kayong mga linya-linya. So kapag may isang dash lang dyan, ibig sabihin, affix yun. Kumakabit siya sa inyong root. Okay? Kapag meron namang equal sign, ibig sabihin yan ay clitic. So medyo maraming nangyayari sa concept of clitic, pero isipin na lang natin na kapag sinasabi nyo, medyo magkadikit sila. So ang bata may clitic sa gitna. Ang bata may equal sign sa gitna ng ang at bata. Okay? Ganon din yung sa bahay. Sa equal sign, bahay. And then sa third line, dyan natin nilalagay yung function ng mga salita. So you have there, AV means actor voice, PFV means perfective. And then kung may mga English words kayo na nakikita dyan, ibig sabihin, tinatranslate lang naman yung ibig sabihin ng ating pangungusap na pinag-uusapan. Okay, ano din yung nom and yung gen. So for now, kapag nakita nyo na marked yung isang salita o nire-represent yung isang salita ng sg.nom, yan yung subject. Kasi yan yung version or yan yung kanilang corresponding word for ang in Tagalog. Kapag sg.gen, yan yung kanilang corresponding word for noun. So far so good. And then finally, in the fourth line, you have your translation in the language of your choosing. Usually English, and then nilalagyan din natin ng Tagalog para makita natin ano ba yung pagkakapareho nung form ng ating mga sentences. Right? Kaya walang confidence. Alright. Okay. So di pala dapat nag-change yung slide. So let's go to sentence number 1. Let's start with the actor voice or AV. The prefix, may kita nyo dito, yung nan, is added to the root tanem, which means that the action of planting has been done and that the subject is the actor, the farmer. So titignan ulit natin yung pangungusap. Ito yung affix, kumakabit sa tanem, yung root na ibig sabihin ay to plant. And yung nan there is your active voice, perfective marker. Affix. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. In sentence 2, the infix, yung is added to the root second or to stand to show the perfective aspect. So titignan nyo, still, yung anak, yung ating subject kasi siya yung minamark ng sg.nom. Pero yung action, siya yung gumawa. So, actor voice. Okay? In sentence 3, meanwhile, we have a more complex process. Aside from the addition of the prefix man to the root can, na ibig sabihin ay to eat, the first consonant and vowel are reduplicated. The change from ka to nga might have been influenced by the last segment of your prefix, as ka changed to be the nasal nga to match with the nasal sound na. So titignan natin, yung root niya talaga ay can, pero dahil ikakabit mo yung man, para mas mapalapit yung na sound tsaka yung ka sound, napalitan yung ka ng nga. May nga. Tapos na-reduplicate or na-double. May nga. Right? Okay, so let's go to our next sentence. A similar affixation is seen in sentence 4. Sentences 3 and 4 are both examples of the imperfective after voice, and we see that man plus the reduplication of the first CV, so first CV, first consonant, and first vowel, is also done in sentence number 4. So, menananim, mantatanim, maola. So, yan yung ating after voice, imperfective, tapos nare-reduplicate ang iyong root. Okay, nakasunod ba? Alright, di ba tayo? So, for sentence 5, the contemplative aspect is reflected with the prefix men. Still, the subject here, still anak, is marked by the bukelot egomot counterpart for ang, which is ma, and is also the doer of the action described in the sentence. Finally, in sentence 6, we see the other affixation strategy for the contemplative after voice. The prefix on is added to yatin or to climb. Why then are there two possible strategies as with the perfective? It is possible that we see a similar dichotomy as that of the mag and affixes in Tagalog. The time and the data, however, are not enough to discuss this fully. let us instead go to the patient voice, or PV next. In sentence 7, you see that for the perfective affix, the prefix in is added to the verb for to plant. So, tanim pa rin yung ating root. If we look at the other words in the sentence, so natitignan nyo, yung ma, yung SG nom, saan na siya nakakabit? Sa sweet potato, yung ola. And yung sweet potato, siya ba yung gumawa ng action ng pagtatanim? Siya yung tinanim. So, patient voice. Okay? If you look at the other words in the sentence, ma, which we have established earlier to be marking the subject, now precedes ola, or sweet potato. The grammatical subject is now the patient of the action, which is why we call this the patient voice. If the action is not yet finished, the prefix pen is used instead. So, halos same lang naman yung other words na ginagamit sa pangungusap, pero yan, tanim, ang kinakabit mo na ay pen. So, patient voice, pero hindi pa tapos yung kanyang action. Okay? May questions ba? Okay. For the contemplative, PV, or patient voice, meanwhile, aside from the prefix E, we also see a C1 reduplication of the root, meaning that the first consonant of the root is duplicated. So here, tanam pa rin yung ating root, pero pag kinabit mo yung E na prefix, nadodoble rin yung unang consonant, yung unang tunog ng ating kinakabitan. So, itanim then means itatanim. So, kaya ko rin nilalagay yung Tagalog translations dito para mas nasusundan nyo yung form. Ano ba yung counterpart dito sa Tagalog? Okay? Before we go to the next voice, let's first return to the perfective. While in 7, we saw that the prefix in, then reveals that it may sometimes be an infix. Whether this is phonologically or lexically determined is yet to be answered. So, naging in na siya, nasa loob. Now, for locative voice, or LV, we will see that the suffix an is a clear locative affix. So, kaya sila naka-highlight na yellow sa mga sumusunod na pangungusap. Sorry kung medyo maliit, pero again, this is recorded, so we will try to release agad para you can review on your own. So, sinaniman, tanim pa rin naman yung root dito, so may an sa dulo. Tanaman, may an sa dulo. Tanaman, may an sa dulo. Okay? So, kaya siya sinasabi na siya yung locative affix kasi lumalabas siya sa lahat ng sentences in the locative voice. And this is why it is highlighted. This aligns with the locative affixes in some Philippine languages like Tagalog, for example. And din naman yung pinag-usapan natin kanina. In sentence 11, sa isay natin, para mas makita natin ang malinaw, to reflect that the action has already been finished, that infix in is also added to the verb. We also see that in the sentence, ma marks bukid or farm, the location of the action. So yan yung SG, no? Hindi siya nakakabit sa mais, hindi rin siya nakakabit doon sa, well, yun lang naman, mais. So nakakabit siya sa bukid. And bukid is your location, kaya siya nasa locative voice. Okay? Next, in sentence 12, for the imperfective, yung prefix na n is affix to the beginning of the word tanim. Both the English and Tagalog translations of the sentence show that the action is yet to be completed. So, ito naman din, mamait, mabukid de. So, they are planting corn on their farm. Tinataniman nila ng mais ang bukid nila. Now, for the benefactive, for sentence 13, which shows the verb in the contemplative voice, we see that there are no additional affixations aside from the locative and. So, titignan nyo, yung first two sentences natin kanina, maliban sa pagdagdag ng and sa dulo ng iyong salita, may mga affixes pa. So, may in tayo dyan, and then dito, meron tayong n. Pero in sentence 13, walang ganong nangyari. Pagkabit mo ng and, yun yun. Okay? Now for the benefactive voice, or BV. Across our three examples, we also see the suffix an. Semantically, it could be argued that the beneficiary and the location are quite similar, which could explain the shared marking. However, the prefixes in 14, 15, and 16 reveal that the affixation of locative voice and benefactive voice are not necessarily the same. As for as eng, pang and which mark the perfective, imperfective, and contemplative respectively, differ from their LV counterparts in, and then not. So yun, parehas yung an, pero yung mga additional affixes na kinakabit sa yung verb ay iba kaysa doon sa ginagamit for the locative voice. Kaya kahit na makita natin, uy, parang parehas naman sila. Hindi naman talaga. Kasi may mga other strategies tayo ginagamit in addition to adding and. So try natin isa-isahin para lang din mas malinaw. So, ang gotowan, siya ni inaton ni tinola. So he was cooked tinola by his mother. Pinagluto siya ng nanay niya ng tinola. So nasaan na yung ating subject? Saya. Okay, so saya. And then, ano yung action? Enggotoan. So, ipinagluto. Parang yun yung kanilang word for ipinagluto. And yung no, makikita nyo dito, nakakabit na siya sa siya or siya. So, siya yung ating benefactive. Kasi hindi naman siya yung nagluto, siya nga yung pinagluto. So, it's in the benefactive voice. If we, however, look at this next example, mapapansin nyo, nag-iba ulit yung ginagamit na affixation. So, panggotoan, siya, inanima tinola. So, he's being cooked tinola by his mother. Ipinapagluto siya ni nanay ng tinola. And then finally, you have sentence 16 na iba naman yung pinagkagulat dito sa umpisa. So, ikotawan kanina ni matinola, you will be cooked tinola by mother. Medyo awkward in English translation, sorry. Ipapagluto ka ni nanay ng tinola. So far so good? Alright. The last part of the paradigm, and one that really needs to be discussed, is the instrumental voice, or IV. I have highlighted the certain affixes in the following sentences. One could argue that pang in sentence 17, pen in 18 and 19 are the equivalents of the instrumental affix that we know in Tagalog to be pang, which could make sense given that it also appears in some of the other Philippine languages. If we follow this claim, however, we must account for the sound changes that might have occurred and why a discrepancy in the form is seen between 17 and 18 to 19. For now, to be accurate, let us present the affixes as they appear in the data. We may return to this in the future through a wider corpus of language data, which also contains spoken sentences. Let us now discuss these sentences here one by one. So in sentence 17, aside from pang, the prefix is also added to the root kagat or to rap for the perfective instrumental voice. Dialyon or newspaper is now marked by the subject marker ma. So yung subject na ay yung dialyon or newspaper. Siya yung ginagamit sa pagpapalo. Kaya siya instrumental voice. So ito yung pinag-uusapan natin kanina na pang, and then you have another affix here na In 80, the marking in the verb is relatively complex. As you see in this slide, you have and then pen, and finally a CV1 reduplication of the root. This means that the first consonant and the first vowel of sulat or to write is duplicated. We finally arrive at epensusulat, which may be translated as ipinapansulat in Tagalog. So tingnan natin, ito again, ang iyong root, sulat, and then meron kang pen, sinasabi natin kanina, and then you have another affix, tapos reduplication. So nadoble yung first syllable of the root. Okay, so and then we get to sentence 19. Originally, the language consultant gave the sentence, "Epensulat ni maanak, malapit ko, for the child will use my pencil to write." However, according to him, plus pen is not enough to show that the verb is in the contemplative, because it is too close to the strategy discussed in 18. So, tingnan ulit natin yung 18 and 19. So, kung sa 18, yung form ng verb mo ay epensusulat, pagdating mo sa 19, yung form mo ay epensulat. So, ayon sa ating language consultant, okay naman, napapakita naman niya na contemplative, pero parang may kulang. Parang may kailangang ilagdag. To further show that the aspect is in the contemplative, a possible auxiliary agan is added. Aga is a verb which means to use, but the sole affix is a strategy that we have not yet seen. For now, I write a question mark in the glossary to show that its analysis is not yet complete. So even though we attempt to show a more accurate or a complete analysis of the paradigm, nangyayari talaga na kulang pa yung data mo to arrive at any conclusion. And the responsible thing to do for now ay lagyan ng question mark and i-revisit sa future research. Okay, if we recall the past examples for the contemplative, one could claim that the null marking itself, o yung wala kang dinadagdag, is the one that reflects the contemplative. This, however, needs additional data. So let's do a greater recap of the paradigm. And so ito yung mga pinag-usapan natin kanina. This is the voice aspect paradigm in Bucalot-Egomot. So for the voices, you have actor voice, patient voice, locative voice, benefactive or beneficiary voice, instrument or instrumental voice, and then for aspect, you have perfective, imperfective, and contemplative. Okay? Alright. So given what we have discussed, what are the possible next steps? First and foremost is to answer the questions that we have left while analyzing the voice aspect paradigm in the language. This needs more fieldwork and closer collaboration with the community. Next, we should also see whether there are other forms and affixes in the variety spoken in the other provinces, Quirino, Aurora, and Nueva We have established earlier that at least in the level of phonology, there has been an observed variation. This might extend up to the level of affixation. While our presentation covered 5 voices in the 3 aspects, the analysis is primarily based on written data. The sentences came from the 700 sentence list, which were then validated. To further solidify and inform our research, we must also look at naturalistic speech, as using text for elicitation has the possibility of rhyming. Finally, we may also look at how these affixes compare to those in related Southern Cordilleran languages. This might better inform our analysis of the affixes and could provide additional explanations for morpheme boundaries, sound changes, and affix combinations. So ano ngayon? So, 1, diba? So why do we do morphosyntactic analysis like what we have done with the voice aspect paradigm in Bucalot-Egomot? There are several reasons. First, this is a part of grammar sketches and reference grammars, which may be used both by community members and linguists in the study of the language. It also provides insights to the larger typological study of voice, cross-linguistic, and of the Philippine-type languages. In another scale, it provides us with more information on language subgrouping, and could help us better understand why in the older comparative literature, the language is usually omitted from the Southern Cordilleran languages. It generally informs our theory of language and poses additional questions which may be addressed by further linguistic inquiry, fieldwork, and collaboration. Pero bakit pa rin? Diba? Kasi lagi naman yung tanong natin. We ultimately return to collaboration. This endeavor has been initiated by the community, led by the community, and done for the community. It all started with their grassroots moves to document their own language for revitalization through intergenerational transmission. The department has been invited to collaborate, and this presentation is again an output of the continued partnership between community members and linguists. We hope that this could complement existing community-based descriptions of the language that they speak and own. Again, I thank the community for welcoming us and working with us, and I thank the audience for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Sir Depano. So I think what I'm really thankful for the presentation is how Sir Depano gave a crash course, especially since we have Ling 110 students here who it still is their first time seeing this kind of analysis, since we're still at the beginning stages of studying morphology. And what's really great is that we approached voice morphology, which is, of course, a very complicated and, as Sir Depano mentioned, a whole topic from what we are familiar with Tagalog. So from how kain becomes kumain, actor voice, to kinain. And also a bit of an overview of what linguists usually do when they are glossing or analyzing these morphemes that they have first found out in a language. And then, immediately after that, with that context, going to the overview of the Bucalot-Egomot paradigm, and how these different affixes that the Bukalaterongan community uses to select what is this ma-marked subject. And also how these different affixes can also change a bit of the phonological structure and which of these affixes are selected. So for example, a while ago we had kan, to eat, which becomes mangan with an actor voice, and that man, actor voice prefix, chooses a ma marked actor subject, in for patient voice, and so on and so forth. And of that breakdown of the different affixes, what was really interesting was the instrumental voice, which Sir Depano has shown a while ago, has a bit of complications due to its similarity with the contemplative voice. And so, as linguists, we have the responsibility not just to make stuff up, but we have to wait for further data so that we would strengthen our claims. And finally, Sir Depano finishes off with how this kind of analysis actually benefits the community and how collaboration with the community helps not only linguists, but also the speakers as well. So with that, we can now move on to the question and answer portion, and let's entertain some questions, comments, and reactions from our audience. So do you have any questions? Please raise your hand. Any questions? All right. I think our audience is still thinking of some questions. Now, while you're still thinking, habang nag-iisip kayo, ako naman magtatanong muna. So, Sir Depano, gusto ko lang maging malinaw, at least ating students, kasi it's already the presentation of the data. How the data was collected, since you mentioned it was from usually written sources, right? So, pagdedetalye lang ng kaunti kung paano ba kinalap o kinolekta yung datos at paano nagsagawa yung validation. Since I imagine since it's a paradigm, you have to check many sentences which are similar to each other but only minimally different. Paano ba sila nag-iba? And just a bit of detail regarding that for our audience.
Okay, thank you, Sir Brian. Medyo baliktad naman tayo ng positions ngayon. Okay, so balikan natin yung picture kanina. My collaboration with the community started in July 2023 because of a Linguistics 225 class. So in that class, isa sa aming ginawa ay yung pag-work with the community members in finishing a 700 sentence list. So parang ginawa namin just to make things more efficient at para hindi nakakapagod sa mga members, ay naghati-hati kami. So this is why I also thank the other members of the team, of the class. So si Ma'am Patricia, si Rolien, si Queenie, and si Ate Jessie. Kasi parang 100 to 200 sentences, hinati-hati namin, and we partnered with a member of the community each. Kasi yung laman ng ating 700 sentences ay yung pinaglalaroan yung mga laman ng isang pangungusap. You would imagine kung gaano nakakapagod yun i-translate. Diba? Maliban doon sa scope na 700 sentences, bibigyan ka ng listahan. Kakain ng bata, translate mo. Kumakain ng bata, translate mo. Kinain ng bata, ang mangga, translate mo. Di ba nakakapagod yung trabaho yun? So we wanted the members, the consultants, to be more relaxed, to be more comfortable, kaya hinati-hati namin. So that's the first part. And then yung mas naging validation, yung una ay noong October, we had a conference sa Manila. Tapos dahil nandun din yung dalawang member of the community, I approached them and asked them to see if tama naman ba yung laman ng aking presentation. So nalinis ko na. Yung nakita nyo yung mga glossed sentences kanina, yan yung pinakita ko, pero pinakwento ko rin pa. Paano ba ito ina-analyze? Ano ba yung nilagay ko na label? Para rin nakakasunod lahat ng tao doon sa usapan. And then said, okay naman yan. Tama naman siya sa spelling, and then yung forms ng words ay okay. May onting adjustments like yung sa case markers, yung sa SG Nomen, SG Gen, and then may mga itinama na sounds. Kasi if you are translating a sentence, dahil nga hindi pa established yung bagong community orthography, iba-iba yung ginagamit na symbols ng different speakers of the language para sa bawat vowel. So yun yung inayos namin. Kasi for example, itong nananem, doon sa listahan namin, nananem pa lang siya. Sa ibang sentences, nananim. So, tinatanong ko ulit, so given yung alam na po natin doon sa ating orthography, ano ba yung more accurate way of representing it? And then, another validation was done in February in preparation for this presentation. And then, yung lumabas doon na pagbabago ay yung sa Onya din. Kasi doon sa original paper, onya din. Tapos wala yung parang arco sa taas ng A. This represents na may glottal stop after, onya din. So inayos namin dyan. And yung pinakita ko kaninang interesting part, yung pagdagdag nung agon ay nung February lang to nangyari. Kasi with the same person that I validated the data before, sabi niya, okay nga naman, pero parang looking at it now, kailangan pa nating ayusin. Parang may kailangan tayong idagdag. And this shows why continued collaboration is important. Kasi para mas nati-check natin all throughout the research process na tama ba yung pinagsasabi ko? Tama ba yung pinag-present ko? Kasi at the end of the day, they own the language. We're just lucky na pinapayagan tayo na i-present to, na pag-aralan. But at the end of the day, they owned it and should also own the knowledge related to these languages. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Sir Defano. I think, yeah, that was a really great explanation. And what is really great there is, as linguists and as beginning researchers, we often forget the perspective of our consultants, and it's really good that we get to have continued collaboration and, of course, validation of the data that we have, especially since, of course, most of us will not be speakers of those languages, and we might not see what is wrong or what is going on. Right, so thank you so much. Do you have any other questions? Yes. Kindly go in front and please state your name and your affiliation as well.
And good afternoon po. Ako po si Aldrich Duacampo, fourth year. BA Linguistics student. So, first of all, congrats po sir for sa presentation po ninyo. Yung question ko ay, pagdating po sa fieldwork po, sa pag-collect po ng data, yung pinanggalingan po talaga nung yung translations po dun sa language, galing po sa Tagalog po, di ba? Or yung parang list po nung translate. So parang, naka-encounter po ba kayo ng yung challenge po? Kasi po diba minsan kapag sa fieldwork, yung yung consultant, parang based po dun sa language na tinatranslate, yung nagiging sagot po nila, parang minamatch nila yung structure nung language na pinanggalingan. So parang, naka-encounter po ba ng ganong klaseng challenge yung sa speaker ng Bukalot? Or parang natural din po sa kanila yung ganitong phrasing ng mga sentences para sa yung natural speech po nila, or parang wala naman pong ganong klaseng struggle. Thank you.
Ayun, sige. Thank you, Aldrich. So, salamat sa pag-congratulate, pero wala naman kailangan i-congratulate. I just presented the current form of the analysis. Pero magandang question. Pero ito yung sinasabi ko kanina doon sa next steps. Kasi yun nga, more context, 700 sentences written in Tagalog. And you will translate that. And even though na pinapakita ko yung forms of the sentences in Tagalog para makita natin yung pagkakapare-pareho, mas madali natin masundan, we should also acknowledge, tama, na hindi naman talaga lahat nakabase sa Tagalog. Hindi naman talaga dapat nakabase sa Tagalog. It should be more natural. This is the greatest weakness of the sentence list elicitation. So every methodology has its own weakness, and we try to complement those weaknesses by using different elicitation methods. And this is why I recommended na dapat mas spontaneous, mas kwentuhan yung ating pag-uusap para mas natural yung forma ng mga pangungusap. However, kita naman natin yung hirap na. Kasi I do not speak the language. So kapag meron kang more natural conversation, you would have to work with another member of the community in translating or in analyzing those sentences. Given the time and the budget, hindi pa yun kaya. And kaya ina-acknowledge natin yun. Nilalagay natin yun doon sa ating papel. Yung example nga, kung kailan nangyari yun, ay yung kanina, yung pinasend ko yung sentence 19. Kasi originally, pansulat ni maanak, malapit ko. So parang word per word translation nung Tagalog sentence na ipapansulat ng bata ang lapis ko. Pinantay. Pero nung nakita ulit nung speaker during the validation, parang nakita niya, may kailangan tayong ayusin. So we try our best na ma-address yung mga ganong bagay, and this is what kailangan. Meron kang spoken data, meron kang written data, and meron kang mas archived na data para na-compare mo. And then you also validate and validate. Ayun. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much for that question and for that answer. Do you have any other questions? Yes? Please. I guess so first and then we can ask after. So, you can first and then since we have a bit of time left.
Hello sir, ang tanong ko lang po, dalawa po siya actually. Yung E na may dalawang tuldok, ginagamit po ba nila yon sa pagsulat? Or sa pagtatype, gano'n?
And then?
Tsaka yung isa, napansin ko lang po sa 11 tsaka 12 na sentences, yung genitive nila ay ma. So, nagda-drop din po sila ng first syllable na ne.
Oo. Sige. Thank you, Mario. Gandang question. Okay, so yung una, sige, unahin natin to kasi nandito na yung slide. Mapapansin nyo, parehas ma na yung ginagamit for the case marker. So, mamait, SG gen yung ginagamit natin. Pero mabukid, SG nom. Yes, nangyayari na tinag-drop nila yung ne na first syllable of the SG gen marker. And yun yung naging difficulty ko rin sa analysis. I think I included some sentences kung saan, sa sentence 14, may parenthesis. I acknowledge that that is an error in my representation, so I should add that para mas makita or mas maintindihan nung nagbabasa na, ay, ma pa rin to, natadrop lang. So tama, yes. And mahirap nga siya if you're not a speaker of the language. So kaya kailangan talaga ng collaboration, kaya kailangan ng validation kasi to other people, this could be represented, yung sentence kanina, ng dalawang SG nom. Na hindi naman talaga dapat. Yung for the second question, yung E na may dalawang tuldok sa itaas, yes, ginagamit siya ng community. The community actually decided on this representation. So yung pinapresent ko dito, lahat ng yan ay community ang nag-decide. That was part of the collaboration between the department and the community and also with the Commission sa Wikang Filipino and the Translators Association of the Philippines. So parang ayon sa community, dapat lagyan natin ang hiwalay na representation yung schwa kasi hindi naman siya E. So yes, so yan yung dinecide nila. Bakit yan mismo yung ginagamit na symbol? May pre-existingly, yan din yung ginagamit, pero also to align it with the other orthographical systems in other Philippine languages. So they did that, they acknowledged that kasi sinabi rin yun during the workshops. Kung ginagamit ba nila sa typing, yes, some of the members of the community that we work with are working on the translation of the Bible. So, yung mga symbols na yan, may mga shortcuts na sila sa keyboard para mas accurate na yung representation. And that's actually one of the factors doon sa workshop kasi you have teachers, members from the DepEd, and then you have translators. So, iba rin yung mga pinanggagalingan ng mga members of the community at iba rin yung kanilang opinion sa iba't ibang bagay. Kasi for example, yung yak din na nakita natin kanina, some would say that it would be hard to teach sa isang bata. Pero, of course, you have another argument na sinasabi, kailangan accurate yung representation. So, yun yung mga yun. Pinaka-interesting yung may allophonic variation across different provinces, right? So, members of the community decided on this. Sabi nila, sa iba, wa. Sa iba, ba. Sa iba, ya. Sa iba, za. So, we should add a dot on top of that sound para kahit na kaya, isulat mo if you're in Nueva Vizcaya na ba yung ginagamit mo, pag nakita nyo may tuldok sa taas, if you're a speaker in Pilino, may kita niya, ba ito sa Nueva Vizcaya, pero sa amin ay wa. So yes, so, I hope that answered your question adequately. Thank you.
I think we have a question over here as well. Was it? Yes, I think use this.
I was interested in how knowing a language with a similar structure affects the analysis, because the analysis knows the structures of other Philippine languages. It seems like they were able to analyze faster than someone who did. Are there any advantages or disadvantages to knowing a language with a similar structure in the analysis?
Oo. Rapid lang yan. Kailangan yan back dyan. If I understood your question correctly, you were asking if, since I know Tagalog, for example, are there any pros and cons of knowing a structurally similar language in studying another language with a similar structure. Maraming pros, maraming cons. Yung unang pro, kung titignan nyo, yung mga pangungusap, see here, na since the structures are very similar, it would be easier to gloss the sentences. It would be easier to look for patterns between the different sentences that you have. So for example, since the sentence here is pretty complex, since you know that it's very similar to the word order of the Tagalog sentence. You could guess na mengangan would be kumakain and ko would be ko. And the biggest benefit that I think this had during the writing of the presentation, the preparation of the presentation, is for the pronoun paradigm. There have been attempts at going at writing a grammar of the Filipino language, but a complete pronoun paradigm has not yet been arrived at. So yung mga ganitong bagay, yung yan as the third person singular nominative, that was also partly based on what we know from Tagalog. So that's you could look at it as a benefit, you could also look at it as a negative effect, because you're very primed in your analysis. Another negative effect would be you're sometimes limited in your analysis. If you see, for example, sentences, forms, constructions that are not appearing in the languages that you speak, if for so far all of the words have their own counterparts, all of the sentences have their own counterparts, so with respect, it's a 100% correspondence. Pero what if there is a sentence construction that is in the language but is not in the language that you speak? You would not be ready to analyze and present it. So for example, serial verb constructions. Serial verb constructions are known to be features in many of the Cordilleran languages, but since the language that I speak, Tagalog, wala naman tayong serial verb construction. If I ever see a sentence, if here you see sentences that are like that, I will not be able to immediately identify that. So that is a thing. So I hope that answered your question.
Alright, I think we have room for one more question. Have any other questions? This is your chance to ask a question.
Matatawag ko tayo.
For recitation for 1-1 and 110. Any questions? From our 110 class? Sir, did you ask a question? Alright.
Any changes from the 1960s data of DocCons to the data that you were able to gather today?
Thank you, sir. So the last part of the presentation included some recommendations for future research. So these recommendations were based on my Link 225 paper, and I added another question there, or the form similar, because based on my 225, very preliminary 225 paper, there appears to be no differences in the affixes. But the sentences that have been transcribed, that have been translated so far from the archive 1960s, 1970s recordings, medyo konti pa lang. So there might be, it is important, it is necessary to revisit the data. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And I think we're already running out of time, but I would like to hijack this question and answer portion to ask a question that I think would kind of summarize all this topic. And you mentioned kanina that when doing this kind of verbal morphological analysis, there are some benefits, especially when collaborating with the community, not only to the linguist, but also to the community. But what I would want to see as well is, do you have any kind of complete examples that you've seen or that you've personally experienced that shows this kind of contribution or benefit to the community when it comes to the analysis that you're doing, especially with verb aspect paradigms?
Thank you, Sir Brian. Mabigat yung tanong na yun. So ano yung relevance nito sa community? Present ko na, yung structure. So again, babalik tayo dito. So what, so what, so what? So yung presentation ko dito, yung unang so why, I focus mostly on the relevance doon sa linguistics talaga. And then doon sa second line, nagbigay ako ng ilang examples doon sa collaboration. Pero siguro a new ones that happens in this collaboration ay yung pares na linguistic and yung mas social na bagay ay pares na relevant in the specific context of the Bugkalot-Egongot community. Kasi sila yung nagbigay nga nung, sila yung nag-validate ng analysis, sila yung meron ng works, and ilan sa mga members of the core team that the department has worked on, as I've mentioned earlier, are teachers and translators. So para sa translators, yung mga naaral na nating forms dito, ginagamit na nila in translating sentences or in representing the sentences in the language. Para doon naman sa mga teachers, they have an ongoing IP education initiative, so IPED, and the plan is to use the different materials that we have arrived at to return to the community, to give to the teachers so that they can use it in the teaching of their students. So if we return here to the first slide, I think, I've mentioned na the community wants to revitalize the language, it being threatened, EJIT 6B, and the two major ways that they are using is first to teach it to the younger generation. So I know kailangan pang linisin ulit yung ating analysis para mas maging relevant sa mga estudyante. And then they are also using Bible translations. I think, yeah. For now, ito mismo, hindi pa siya nababalik kasi gusto ko bang linisin pa ulit. Pero, hindi siya nababalik sa larger community, but the people that I have worked with, the members of the community that I have worked with, have copies of the current form of the analysis. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Sir Depano, for that wonderful answer. And I hope this clears up to many of our audience, many introduction to linguistic students as to why linguists are doing these kinds of analyses and these kinds of studies. So once again, many thanks to Sir Depano for engaging us and sharing your knowledge of the Tagalog language. On behalf of the UP Department of Linguistics, we present the Certificate of Appreciation. Let me read its contents. This Certificate of Appreciation is presented to John Michael Vincent Depano for delivering the lecture, The Voice Aspect Paradigm in Bugkalot-Egongot, held on 21 March 2025 as part of the Philippine Indigenous Language Lecture Series of the University of the Philippines Diliman Department of Linguistics. Signed, Maria Cristina Gallego, Chairperson of the UP Department of Linguistics. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, we're announcing our next events. Thank you so much, Sir JM, and thank you so much, Ma'am Tina, for this opportunity. So we also thank the audience for their participation and questions, including those who are watching the recorded version on YouTube. For the members of the room today, thank you so much for attending, and for the certificate of attendance, please scan the QR code posted around the room or type the URL that's also found on the posted papers around the room. So you can type this in your device's browser to answer the evaluation form. As for our upcoming events, I would like to announce that we have many events actually coming up for next week, as well as for our continuation of the different PILS installments. So regularly check our website and social media pages for announcements on future events and activities. April's installment for PILS will be Ang Konsepto ng Gawat sa Wikang Pangasinan, to be presented by Assistant Professor Francisco Rosario. And the semester's final installment will be Tangkang Paglalapat ng Ilang Kontemporanyong Teoryang Panggramatika sa Porohanon by Assistant Professor Vinci Santiago. And also do look forward to our mid-year PILS installment with Associate Professor Jem Javier and Teaching Associate Patricia Asuncion fieldwork experience with the Higaonan language community in Mindanao.